Now, farmers and landowners in England could soon be paid to rewild their land. It's part of a government scheme to transform vast areas into nature reserves to try to restore wildlife and floodplains. Bids for pilot projects are being invited, but there are concerns it could end up favouring the wealthiest landowners. To discuss all this, I'm joined by the National Farmers Union President, Minette Batters. Thanks very much for joining us, Minette. Is this as simple as paying farmers for trees rather than food?
It is a bit like that. That is the danger with this policy of rewilding. I mean, all farms have wild spaces, and rewilding within a food-producing landscape is something to be celebrated. But our worry is if you take land out of production, we have a vast proportion of farmers in this country who are tenant farmers. They don't own the land. And this really, the future has to be about tenant farmers and landowners. And ultimately, it has to be driven by food production. That is what farmers do. They run businesses and they produce food to feed the nation. And so to take land out of production, we feel is worrying, and it's really got to be focusing on self-sufficiency, food security. We've got 70 million people very nearly in this country. And I think on the back of COVID, everybody recognises being able to produce our food is extremely important. And on the back of that, be able to do, yes, more for nature, more for the environment.
Well, that's the key as well, isn't it? I mean, we've just had the COP summit. Everybody's talking about the environment very pressing. The government's got this target of managing 30% of the land for the good of nature by 2030. That's not very far away. So there is a job of work to be done here, and farmers have a part to play, don't they?
Farmers have a massive part to play and are really up for this. I mean, farmers are the only working conservationists that we have. 70% of the country is a farmed landscape. But we've got to make sure that they have profitable, thriving, sustainable farming businesses that allows them to invest in nature, to put land aside for nature. So I think for us, it's about land sharing. It's not about land sparing and taking land out of production. We've got to be able to produce food and do more for nature and the environment. And farmers are up for that, but we need a policy that does both effectively. Otherwise, we just offshore our production and rely on other countries that face all sorts of issues around water security, for instance, to produce our food. Now, with a maritime climate, that would be wrong. We've got to make sure we feed our own country.
Indeed, of course we do. And I don't think anybody would say that we don't want to feed our own country. But as I say, there's a balance, isn't there? And that there needs to be a policy. Isn't this the policy?
I think most farmers would say it's got a way to go. We need to see more detail. And what you saw announced today is very much the focus of taking these areas out of production effectively and rewilding them. I think what farmers want to see is the detail on actually what farming is going to look like. We really believe we can lead the world in climate smart farming. That's going to be about innovation coming through. It's going to be about new technologies that are ultimately driving those changes. So there's a lot more to food production than rewilding on its own just doesn't do it. And my priority, as I said before, is about the farmers. This is living, breathing communities that underpin very fragile parts of the United Kingdom, underpin those village schools, the allied trades in those areas. So we've got to get it right.
We have indeed. All right, National Farmers Union President Minette Batters, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.